The Panama Canal stands as a testament to human ingenuity. Completed in 1914, it redefined global trade. This engineering marvel connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Ships save thousands of miles compared to navigating around South America. The canal handles 5% of the world's maritime commerce. It has reshaped geopolitical dynamics and international relations. Increasing ship sizes and climate change raise concerns about its future. Nicaragua, a nation with a history of Grand Canal projects, is once again aiming to connect the Atlantic and Pacific. This ambitious $50 billion project rivals the Panama Canal. Nicaragua hopes to capitalize on global trade and become a major maritime player. Proponents highlight the Panama Canal's limitations, especially during droughts. Nicaragua's abundant freshwater resources offer a solution. The project aims to attract investment, create jobs, and boost infrastructure. President Ortega supports the project, seeing it as transformative. However, critics question its economic viability and environmental impact. The proposed Nicaraguan canal would carve a new path through the country, connecting the Caribbean Sea to the Pacific Ocean. This ambitious waterway, stretching over 170 miles, would dwarf the Panama Canal in length. The route, as envisioned, would commence at a planned deep-water port in Bluefields on Nicaragua's Caribbean coast. From there, it would traverse Lake Nicaragua, the country's largest freshwater lake, before continuing westward, eventually reaching the Pacific Ocean at the port of Bredo. The decision to route the canal through Lake Nicaragua has sparked significant controversy. Critics argue that dredging the lake to accommodate large ships could have devastating consequences for its ecosystem. Sedimentation, pollution, and the introduction of invasive species pose serious threats to the lake's biodiversity and the livelihoods of communities that depend on it. To address these concerns, the Nicaraguan government has proposed the construction of artificial lakes and bypass channels to minimize the impact on Lake Nicaragua. However, the feasibility and effectiveness of these mitigation measures remain subjects of debate. The canal's construction would necessitate the excavation of vast amounts of earth and rock, potentially altering the landscape dramatically. The disposal of this dredged material raises environmental concerns, as it could contaminate water sources and damage sensitive ecosystems. China's growing global influence has extended to Nicaragua's ambitious canal project. Chinese companies have expressed interest in participating in the project, and the Chinese government has been supportive of Nicaragua's endeavor. This involvement has raised both hopes and concerns, as China's track record in infrastructure projects abroad is often accompanied by questions about transparency, environmental standards, and potential geopolitical implications. The most prominent Chinese player in the Nicaraguan Canal project is the Hong Kong-Nicaragua Canal Development Company, or HKND Group, a private company granted a 50-year concession to build and operate the canal. While HKND Group is a private entity, its close ties to the Chinese government have fueled speculation about China's strategic interest in the project. China's involvement in the Nicaraguan Canal is seen by some as part of its broader Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure development strategy aimed at expanding China's economic and political influence. The canal, if completed, could provide China with a strategic asset in the Western Hemisphere, enhancing its access to raw materials, markets, and potential military projection capabilities. However, China's role in the project has also faced criticism. Concerns have been raised about the lack of transparency in the bidding process, the potential for corruption, and the environmental and social impacts of Chinese-led infrastructure projects. A sea of challenges, financial, environmental, and geopolitical hurdles, the Nicaraguan Canal project faces a formidable array of challenges, ranging from financing and environmental concerns to geopolitical complexities. These hurdles cast a long shadow over the project's feasibility and raise questions about its long-term viability. The most pressing challenge is the project's astronomical cost, estimated at $50 billion. The canal's price tag has raised eyebrows among economists and potential investors. Securing the necessary funding has proven to be a major obstacle, particularly in light of the project's risks and uncertainties. Environmental concerns are equally daunting. The canal's route through Lake Nicaragua, a vital freshwater resource, has sparked outrage among conservationists and local communities. Dredging the lake to accommodate large ships could have devastating consequences for its ecosystem, threatening biodiversity, water quality, and the livelihoods of those who depend on it. The project's geopolitical implications add another layer of complexity. The involvement of China, a rising global power, has raised concerns in the United States, which views the canal as potentially challenging its influence in the region. The canal's strategic location, close to vital shipping lanes and U.S. interests, has the potential to reshape the geopolitical landscape of Central America. Troubled waters, navigating the environmental concerns. The environmental impact of the Nicaraguan Canal project has emerged as a major point of contention. Critics argue that the canal's construction and operation could have devastating consequences for Nicaragua's environment, particularly its water resources, biodiversity, and fragile ecosystems. One of the most pressing concerns is the potential impact on Lake Nicaragua, Central America's largest freshwater lake and a vital source of drinking water for millions of people. The canal's route through the lake would require extensive dredging to accommodate large ships, which could stir up sediments, release pollutants, and alter the lake's delicate ecological balance. The introduction of invasive species is another major concern. As ships from around the world traverse the canal, they could inadvertently introduce non-native plants and animals into Lake Nicaragua, potentially disrupting the ecosystem and outcompeting native species. Beyond Lake Nicaragua, the canal's construction would require the clearing of vast swaths of forest, fragmenting habitats and threatening biodiversity. The disposal of the massive amounts of earth and rock excavated during construction also poses environmental risks, as it could contaminate water sources and damage sensitive ecosystems. Between two giants, the US and China in the canal equation. The Nicaraguan Canal project has become entangled in the complex geopolitical dynamics between the United States and China. The involvement of China, a rising global power, in a project of such strategic significance in the Western Hemisphere has raised concerns in Washington, which views the canal as potentially challenging its influence in the region. The United States has a long history of involvement in Central America, dating back to the 19th century. The Panama Canal, located just a short distance from Nicaragua, has been a cornerstone of U.S. strategic interests in the region, facilitating trade, projecting military power, and maintaining influence. China's entry into the equation, with its growing economic and political clout, has introduced a new element of competition. The Nicaraguan Canal, if completed, could provide China with a strategic asset in the Western Hemisphere, enhancing its access to raw materials, markets, and potential military projection capabilities. The U.S. government has expressed reservations about the project, citing concerns about transparency, environmental standards, and the potential for increased Chinese influence in the region. The Trump administration in particular was critical of the project, viewing it as part of China's broader efforts to challenge U.S. hegemony. An uncertain tomorrow, the future of Nicaragua's canal dream. The future of the Nicaragua Canal project remains uncertain. Facing financial, environmental, and geopolitical challenges, securing the $50 billion funding is a major obstacle deterring investors. Environmental concerns and the lack of a credible impact assessment fuel skepticism. Geopolitical tensions, especially US-China rivalry, complicate matters further. As of today, April 3, 2025, the project remains stalled.